Good evening. I'm gonna call the meeting to order here at 6 o'clock on this evening, which is September 23rd, for a regular meeting of council for the Region of Queens Municipality. I want to acknowledge that we are in Mi'kma'ki, which is the traditional and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and we have rights and responsibilities as treaty people. Item 2 is approval of the agenda. Council, are there any additions or revisions to the agenda circulated? Go ahead, Councillor Fancy.
Yes, I'd like to add to the agenda 9.1, correspondence for action.
Thank you, Councillor Fancy. 9.1, correspondence for action. Any other items to add to the agenda circulated? Any other items? I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor Jenkins. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Councillor Carver. All those in favor? It's approved. 3.0 is adoption of the minutes. We have the minutes from the regular council meeting which took place September 9th, 2025. Any revisions, omissions, additions, and a review of those minutes, Council? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to adopt the minutes as circulated. Moved by Deputy Mayor Charlton, seconded by Councillor Merrow. All those in favor? Carried. On to public comments. So this is the section of the meeting where we look forward to hearing from our residents in the community. If you would like to address council this evening, I would ask that you approach the microphone, so you can sit down at any of the 4 microphones here, or stand up at this microphone. In order to use the microphone, you push the gray button that's at the base of the microphone. A light will turn on. You'll also see this will be illuminated up here. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. If you could state your name and the community where you reside. Please direct your comments to me as the chair of this meeting, and please ensure that your comments are respectful. And also be aware that we are live streaming this meeting, as we do with all meetings, on our YouTube channel as well as on our Facebook feed. So for folks who want to address council and just anybody else who's present here today, there are microphones and a camera under operation, and this is a public meeting, so conduct yourselves accordingly. Is there anyone who would like to speak to council at this time? Sir, come on up. Take your pick. Any of these microphones here will work. It's totally your choice. And that will come up if there's arrows on that if you want to. You have to hit the button, sir. Hit the button at the base. Yeah, and you can actually, there's arrows on that will bring it up higher to you. Maybe Heather can help you out. Yeah, see, just so you don't have to bend over to it, it'll come right up to you.
Right button pushed in.
Until you're done speaking, and then you press it so someone
Okay.
else can speak.
When the mic is red, you may speak. Press the button when you finish.
Okay, sir. Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay, I'm ready to go.
You are so.
Okay. My name is Lockie Hutman.
Lucky Hutman.
I have lived in Queens County for a long time. I've been a taxpayer since 1971. I've lived in various places. I lived down Brooklyn, across from Crosby's Garden Center. There was a discrepancy with a neighbor. He aggravated me for a long, long time. I got involved with the RCMP. The RCMP was something I never should have got involved with. The young fellow kept aggravating me, so I moved out. I moved out on the Waypoint Road. The young fellow followed me. He is living out there on the White Point Road somewheres. For the last year and a half, I have not had a night's sleep. I'm waking 3 and 4 and 5 times every night. He is singing, he is hooting, he is hollering. I called one of the counselors, and I believe he did go out and calm them down for a while. I called my own counselor for help, and there was none there. So, what I'm trying to find out is there any help in this region for somebody who has a major problem? Yes or no?
I'm certainly sorry to hear the experience that you're having, Mr. Hutman. Apologies again. We don't sort of do the question and answer. I'd be happy to during in this forum, I'd be happy to sit down with you and explore it further to see if there is anything that any support that we could provide. I mean, my initial response would be that this seems like something that would be appropriate for the RCMP to deal with, but it sounds like you haven't received much. It sounds like you haven't received the help that you're looking for from the RCMP. I'd be happy to sit down with you one-on-one to explore if there's anything we could do as a municipality to support you.
The RCMP more or less directed me to get a private investigator. The only private investigator, there's one in Hammond's Plains, and the rest of them are in Halifax. There are no private investigators in this part of the province. I have called every security company there is between Lunenburg and Shelburne, trying to get one of them to come and assist me. And they just don't do that kind of work. They are into looking after parties and working in stores and stuff like that. The best I can tell you.
Okay. I think probably public meeting isn't the best place for this conversation. I'll give you my contact information, or we'll take it offline. I'd be happy to sit down with you and explore ways that we could potentially put you in touch with the right supports to help you in this situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at the present time, he has a bunch of friends. At the present time, there's about 4 of them that hang around the house, his house. He is over hooting and hollering, waking me up, and just plain aggravating 24 hours a day. He has made a bunch of DVDs or tapes or something, and every one of his friends have them, and he'll be over here singing one song, and they're down there smoking off another song. I mean, it's a rugged place.
Okay, let's, I don't want, because this is a public meeting, I don't want this to actually conflate or inflame the challenges and issues that you're having.
Yeah.
I think it's best that we take this offline. I'd be happy to sit down with you and explore if there's other supports that we could put you in touch with. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll sit down, you'll get me later.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Thanks, Mr. Hutman. Is there any other members of the community who would like to address council this evening? I'll call one more time. Any other members of the community would like to address council? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. We don't have any delegations or presentations this evening, nor do we have unfinished business to attend to this evening. We do, however, have a couple staff reports, the first of which being presentation of our audited financial statements. At this time, I'd like to invite up Director Vino to come forward and provide us with an overview of the audited financial statement, please.
Good evening, Council. During preparation of our annual financial statements, Region of Queens Municipality engages auditors to obtain evidence used in evaluating the appropriateness of our accounting policy, the reasonableness of accounting estimates made by staff, and the overall presentation of the consolidated financial statements. For the 24-25 fiscal year, the financial statements were reviewed in detail by the Audit and Internal Control Committee at their meeting August 11th, 2025. On August 18th, 2025, staff from Doane Grant Thornton, Region of Queens Municipalities Auditor, presented the audited financial statements to the Audit and Internal Control Committee. The committee consists of 2 members of council, Councillor Wenzel and Councillor Jenkins, and 3 independent members of the public. The statements were reviewed by committee members, and the committee recommends the statements be adopted by council as presented. I'm not going to read the applicable legislation because I think it's pretty straightforward. So what I'm going to do tonight is review those financial statements for you as council. And you've heard me talk before about the difference between consolidated statements and non-consolidated statements. Consolidated statements are a combination of the statements of all of the separate funds. For review purposes, the non-consolidated statements will be analyzed as they provide the most suitable level of detail for council's purposes, as their numbers feed directly into the consolidation. So this process also provides a review of the consolidated numbers. Region of Queens operating fund had a surplus of $1.385 million for the fiscal year ended March 31st, 2025. And I'm on page 3 of my report. You'll notice that what I've done is I've taken the revenue and expenditures. I have the first column is the budget, the second column is actual, and the third column is a variance. So the surplus was a result of increasing revenues. We have deed-transfer tax, return on investments, and we had some unbudgeted revenue for Hillsview Acres capital and our emergency funding, but we also had increased expenses associated with those. And we had a slight increase in revenue from our solid waste facility. Total expenditures were less than budget due to a combination of vacant positions and budgeted projects not completed. So what I've done in the following pages for the operating statement is I've taken these variances and I've broken them down in a little more detail for you. So right now I'm on page 4, financial statement review. I just want to open my financial statement so I can see the page in front of me, please. Give me a second. So we're going to start with page B1, and that's a summary of all the revenues and expenses in the financial statement. So we're going to now get into the nitty-gritty of what all those numbers, what all those sections are. So now I've changed to B2, which is a statement of financial position, known to most people as an income statement. This is a snapshot on March 31st, 2025. So a statement of financial position is a snapshot at a certain date. Statement of operations is the whole year activity. So we had a significant increase in our taxes receivable, mainly due to our increase in assessments because our tax rate did not change. You will all remember that our tax rate was held steady. Another thing of significance here in a statement of financial positions, the utility, the water utility now owes the operating fund $684,000. Deferred revenue decreased $595,000 because we had provincially funded projects that we completed. So we would have received that money in a previous fiscal year. And we call it deferred revenue then because we defer it because we haven't used it. But it's for a purpose, so we can't count it as ours until we spend it on what we're supposed to spend it on. And we did that this year. So we had Hillsview Acres had a significant project of their boiler replacement. It was almost $250,000, and we had an ice resurfacer from the province and some other minor additions. Our tax sale surplus increased, so we had a successful tax tender in February of 2025. So that increased the surplus by $215,000, which was significant. But again, that money can't be touched for 20 years, and that money, when we get to take it out, has to go to the special capital reserve. It doesn't become operating money that supports the tax rate. Does anyone have any questions on that page? Okay. We're going to move on to B3. This is also a statement of financial position, but this is the statement for the capital fund. So this is the fund where all of our assets live. So some of the high points you'll see this year, the work in progress is big. We have a pool on the go. We have HVAC on the go. We had library renovations. And we had some design work for the Mount Pleasant Surface Extension. So that's a really big number. You notice that this is line 3 down the page. So last year it was $53,000 and this year it was $4.7 million. So we put what's called work in progress when the project isn't finished. So for example, the library was completely finished and opened after March 31st. So next year that will come in, will become one of our tangible capital assets. Does anyone have any questions on on that snapshot of financial position for the capital fund? Okay. B4, this is financial activities in the capital fund. So the revenue this year was $142,000. That was an Infrastructure Canada investment program funding for the Waterloo project. That was money that we spent last year and they reimbursed it this year because we worked 1 year behind on claims. And we received that provincial funding for the Hillsview boiler. Capital out of operating includes the Hillsview boiler. Again, we spent money on the Viper drives at Queen's Place, the Works Garage generator, and Liverpool Business Development Center HVAC project. Special transfers from special operating reserves were for capital projects completed during the year. Does anyone have any questions on the B4? Am I going too fast? We're good? So B5 is just a summary of all of our capital assets. You see we have almost $100 million of capital assets on our books. That's a significant amount of money that takes a significant amount of resources to maintain. And that's at cost, so that's not the depreciated value. Page B6, this is where we get into the meat and potatoes of our operating statement. So this is how we did operationally for the year. So we're going to do the revenues first. So B6 starts with taxes. So again, I'm going to give you the highlights. So in that, where does the surplus come from? You'll see that $210,263 over budget. So this is kind of the highlights of why we have that number. Commercial revenue was higher than budget because the charitable tax exemption, which included mostly commercial rated properties, was lower than anticipated at budget. Protective services as hydrant rates. This was adjusted to more closely approximate the mandated rate when the tax bills were run. The budgeted amount was allocated to the utility, but there was a difference of $10,301 in the rate collected. So what happened was during the budget that year, at the end when the budget was approved, there was a discrepancy in the amount that was in the budget and the amount that that actually was collected from the ratepayers. But all of the money that was collected by the ratepayers went to the utility. Area rates other, this debt is for paving that was reduced on the tax bills but not adjusted on the budget again. That was something that was not tweaked at the end of the budget for last year. Deed transfer tax is 17.5% higher than budget, so we gained $166,000 for deed transfer tax. Section 2, grants in lieu. Oh, look, it rhymes. We're $33,708 over budget, and these are allocated by the province. So we have an estimate of what we use in our statement of assessments. We use an estimate, and sometimes we get more money, so we just say thank you and we take the money. Page B7, services provided to other governments. That's our contracted solid waste. We had the slight increase in volume. Section 4, sales of service. So we got $890,000 over budget. So the environmental health services are solid waste facility uses by non-contracted users. Tipping fee increases were averaged 8.3%. Volume decreased slightly. So the revenue was only 2.2% increase. And of course, our Hillsview acres, these were the funding that we received from the province, including the boiler replacement, flooring, furniture, emergency funding requests, retro pay, and retention bonuses for staff. Section 5, revenue from owned sources. So we had about $50,000 over budget for that. So during the budget process in 2024, there was a reduced expectation for rental of one property that did not materialize. So that's why we were over budget, $55,000 there. Return on investments, the interest rates did not drop as quickly as anticipated during the budget process, so we made an extra $170,000 there, which is great. Penalties and interest, the interest charge on the tax bills. There are a few significant accounts that are contributing to the increase this year, so it's over $62,000. Queens Place Amira Center had ice rentals of $40,000 over, room rentals were over by 10, and fitness memberships were over by $17,000. All very positive indicators of the increased use of our facility. Under the miscellaneous line, the recreation program revenue is there. We have, that's under budget because that's where the MPAL position funding was budgeted. We didn't have an MPAL last year, if you remember. Sundry revenue, this is where we had the donations that were totaling $160,000 that were unbudgeted. And we also had a Province of Nova Scotia bridge cost share of $6,000 that was unbudgeted. And it also includes the $440,000 for our vacancy allowance, which is a placeholder for wage costs that were not incurred because the positions were not filled. Section 6 is annual contribution from the province, so that's our equalization grant. And Section 7 is our conditional transfer, which means we get money from other governments for a specific thing. So when we get grant funding, for example, this is where the funding goes. Diversion credits were double what was expected for 24-25, and we're still trying to figure that one out, but again, we'll be grateful to take the money. So I'm at B8. This is where we take money from our reserves and we pull it into the operating budget. We do these things because we want to take money from the surplus to pay for things that are in the budget, or sometimes to balance the tax rate so that we don't have to worry about increasing the tax rate. That's some of these things that were here. So I have a little table that I put in here, and I'm not going to go through all of it, but I've broken it all down so that it's really easy for you all to pick everything out. The budgeted transfers that were not required from the special operating reserve, which is line 2, is Mount Pleasant funding study of $286,787. And the difference between that and the number in the financial statements is the Hillsview Acres transfer. I know that's the end of the revenue, and I know I kind of blew through it, but does anyone have any questions? Councillor Wenzel.
Just jog my memory a little bit, Director Vino. And I go back to our statement of financial position, our capital fund, and anytime we reference actually the Mount Pleasant Exchange, and you might have answered this before, but does that include the water transmission line that's supposed to be replaced from Roy Turner Drive to the bottom of Union Street? Is that all included in the Mount Pleasant Exchange with the capital work?
The actual transmission line is funded from the capital, the water capital fund. So that is not in the capital fund. I know it's confusing. It's not in the capital fund where all our other assets live. The water capital lives in another place. Remember we talked about the houses, right? So we have a water house and we have a special operating reserve house. Well, for some reason, the water assets live on the 3rd floor of that special operating reserve house. And so the transmission lines, and I don't know what from where to where, I just know that what I see when it says transmission lines, those are funded from the water utility capital. And where that money comes from is every year there's a certain amount of depreciation that's on the operating statement for the utility. It's about $116,000. And at the end of the fiscal year, I transfer that money in cash over to the water capital fund, and that funds those things. So right now there's enough money in there to fund both of those pieces of that extension that's part of the Mount Pleasant Service Extension project. So those pieces are already funded by the utility. The money is already there. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Sorry, Director Vino, I just had a question. And sorry, I think you might have answered this question before too. Back in B6 section 1 for under taxation, when we talk about the debt for paving being reduced on the tax bills but not adjusted in the budget, and just walk me through, sorry, why do we treat it that way? Why remove it from the tax bill but don't adjust it on the budget?
Because what happened was the budget said it was a certain number.
Right.
Okay, so and you have to forgive me because I wasn't here when that budget was approved.
Oh,
so,
okay, right,
Yeah,
right, yeah.
so I was off.
Yeah.
So the budget was, let's say, I can't think of it off the top of my head. I think it's in one of these numbers, so I can't pull it out. But what happened was there was some debt in there that wasn't removed from the previous year. So we ended up budgeting more than we collected
Okay,
because I wasn't going to collect what I didn't need.
right, right.
And if you remember, when we talked about this at budget and all the area rates that are associated with District 13,
Yeah.
what we did at the end of this fiscal year was I did an analysis of all those rates, the
Yes.
paving rate, the road rate.
Yeah, I
the-
do
the
remember
debt.
that. That's sort of
Right.
the nature of my, so trying
Yeah.
to understand this previous practice and the context of
Yeah.
us trying
Yeah.
to establish that particular reserve fund for the area,
Yep.
the District 13 taxpayers.
Yep,
Okay.
and that's exactly what that is. So
Yeah.
at the end of the year, I went and did the math and went, okay, so District 13 people were charged this amount of money, but this amount of money was used, so the difference went into that District 13
Right.
reserve that you approved.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so is everybody comfortable with the revenue section? So are we ready to move on to B9? So again, these sections are mandated by our FRAM and our Public Service Accounting standards, and the first one is General Government Services. So I just want to give you some highlights. So we were $578,000 under budget. So the difference between the mayor and council budget error, you can see what the actual was versus the budget was that we used the new rate for the new council for the budget, and it was only since October that new rate was in effect. Council expenses are over budget because of the laptops that were funded from the surplus and additional travel costs related to orientation. Under general administration, we had admin wages were below budget because we had a vacancy of manager of finance, municipal clerk, and the CAO. Computer services were over 48, but overage was funded by accumulated surplus approved by council. Staff training, $37,000 below budget. Financial management is over budget due to increase in audit fees and other financial matter support during the year. So for Joan Grant Raymond, that's not it. Joan Grant Thornton, there you go. We not only use them for our audit, but if the CAO or myself wants advice with a certain topic as it relates to financial reporting, they're also there for us, but they charged us obviously for that, so that's why we were over. Tax exemptions were slightly below budget. Other expenses, we had the $286,000 for Mount Pleasant study, which was not incurred. Contingency, $301,000 for wages. The actual expense increases in the wages are on the respective account lines. So that $300,000 was a placeholder for those of you that were on the council at that time. It was a placeholder. So the actual amounts for the increase in wages for IBW, for example, are on the wage lines where those people's labor was allocated. And we had $197,000 in unbudgeted sponsorships are included here. Those unbudgeted sponsorships were also funded by some community donations. Uncollectible taxes are higher than budget because of a greater difference in the valuation allowance. More accounts met the criteria for inclusion, and recovery for taxes is over budget by $4,000. Section 10, protective services, we were slightly under budget. RCMP actual cost was more than budgeted, and this is determined by the provincial group. Fire inspection building includes shared services for the cost of $63,000. And if you remember, we talked about that very, very briefly in my Q1 report because a lot of that was given back to us. Because when they did the reconciliation, I think it was about $54,000 that we received. So that's good. Bylaws under budget, we had no parking meter replacement and no part-time fire inspector. And for firefighting, dry hydrant maintenance and upgrades were not completed, so that's why we have the $38,000 under budget. The fire hall repairs were $33,000 under budget. Fuel was under budget with utilities over budget, so they kind of netted each other out. And the snow removal was $4,000 under budget. So I'm going to move right along to B10, which is the bottom of B10, which is our transportation services. So altogether, we're almost $250,000 under budget. Common Services Administration wages are budgeted based on work plans set in early 2024. An actual allocation can vary as budgeted work plans can change based on operational needs. This is something that's been a concern of mine and also Director Grant's for the last couple of years, and we're gonna try a different method this year because I'm not comfortable with the transparency of this, the way it's being treated now for you as council and also for our taxpayers. So we're going to be doing something that's a little bit different this year with our budget in the upcoming year, and we'll talk about that at the time. Cleaning supplies for all facilities now fall under this section, and they were over budget by 40%. This is the first year that the cleaning supplies were all under the Director of Infrastructure's budget. So you know what? We didn't budget enough. Equipment operations, we had some retroactive wage increases for the IBW members. Gas and diesel were down for the year, but keep in mind that when gas and diesel is down, that could be just one delivery, that instead of delivering it on March 31st, they delivered it on April 2nd, because when we get deliveries, they're hefty. Store of the Works garage, the generator for the garage was completed significantly under budget, and the generator is included in the capital out of operating. Roads and streets projects not completed were, we didn't do anything with the Liverpool Bridge sidewalk design, which was $182,000, Gorham Street Planner $66,000, and the Old Burial Ground $88,000. The J-class roads were $100,000 over budget, and that was funded by the accumulated surplus per council. Now, if you remember when we were talking about doing the budget this year, I said all of those big things like this, like the Liverpool Bridge sidewalk design, Gorham Street Planter, Old Burial Ground, they're no longer going to be included in the operating statement or the operating budget. I moved everything that's capital to our CIP, to our capital investment plan, because what happens is if we keep treating it this way, we have the revenue brought in from the surplus here and the expense here, and it's not transparent to the taxpayer, because they net out if we don't do it. So I moved it all to the CIP. Remember, it's also, we have a lot more on the CIP now, but it's so much more easy to follow for people who aren't in it. Also for all of you, I hope. Section 12, which is on B11, is our environmental health services. We're slightly under budget there. We had some sewer collection system replacement pumps that were required to support operations that were not anticipated during the budget process, so that was over. But with our garbage and waste collection, we had administrative wages under budget due to management position vacancies and lower salary allocation than budgeted. And garbage, waste, and collection trucking costs increased for contracted partners. Mostly that was the fuel surcharge. Landfill leachate costs were lower than budget for both costs of the truck and wages, which was great. Recycling IBEW wage increases was the largest in the new collective agreement. Section 13 is our Hillsview Acres expenses, and there's a detailed listing of that closer to the end of our operating statement. So I'm on B12 now. Section 14, Environmental Development Service, so that's planning, land use. It's about a little over budget. The administrative development officer vacancy, $80,000 was not spent for accessibility grant leveraging. Do you remember that? We talked about that in budget, and council decided that what wasn't spent is moved to an accessibility reserve. So that's why it's still here, but it's now moved to the reserve. So we have that money in there. Tourism and economic development staffing vacancies and projects were just not completed during the year. The overage is largely the Business Development Center cost for maintenance and overage for the HVAC project funded by Section 8. So now I'm going to Section 15, which is Recreation and Cultural Services. So we have $285 under budget. Swimming pool expenses decreased because we only had one pool. Parks, and because at the beginning of the year, remember, we thought we were going to be able to get Milton Pool back up and running, so we budgeted for 2. Parks and playground staffing vacancies and projects were not completed. Museum projects were not completed on the Astor, and the blacksmith shop was under budget significantly because the work wasn't as extensive as infrastructure thought when we did the budget. Other were staffing allocations differing from budget for the parks and playground maintenance, and then there was a $30,000 physical activity strategy that was unspent due to no MPAL. Now we're in section 16, fiscal transfers. So this is where we take money paid from the tax rate and we fund the reserves. So we have a jet distribution, fuel distribution for the airport. That was a one-time contribution. We had a cell tower contribution. We no longer contribute to that. We have the small amount for the airport reserve. The broadband was that project is finished now, so that's great. And here you'll look under the line that says fiscal 2024 surplus, 1.385 million. That's me taking the money of the surplus and moving it into the special operating reserve. That's what public sector accounting standards tell us I have to do, and that becomes part of the accumulated surplus. We also contributed the budgeted contributions to the landfill equipment, general equipment. We had a shortfall, which was slightly under budget for the general equipment reserve because a director grant was able to get some trade-ins, some values for some of our trade-ins, which is great. And we have the $5,000 contribution to our first responders reserve. That's for a new ambulance or safety equipment, as far as I know. So let's switch it up to, let's just go back. B13 is page B13 is our detail of our Hills view. There really wasn't anything substantial there. The difference being is that this year we had a deficit of $77,000 rather than a surplus. It's the first year since I've been here that we've had a deficit. Most of that is because of wage increases. So I'm now on page B14 now, so it's our water utility. Reduction in expenses, $30,000 is difference in allocation of labor from what was budgeted. And the deficit is 42% less than what was budgeted overall, so that's good news. B15 is our statement of financial position. The amounts owing to other funds has increased as the utility continues in a deficit position. I know the report says a rate study hearing takes place in October, but now that's been pushed to November. The amount due to capital is the amount owed for inventory that was paid for by the capital fund and not used on the project and now sits in inventory for utility. Page B16 is the Water Utility Capital Fund Statement of Financial Position. This is Councillor Wenzel. This is what we were talking about earlier. Has its own statement. Cash and cash equivalents is amortization is funded by cash transfer from the utility operations annually in the amount of depreciation. Excess cash was not reinvested in GICs as it was anticipated that this would fund projects in 2024-25 because we thought that we were going to be doing some of those transmission lines that year, but now it's still here. Still making interest for us, so that's all good. B17, water utility tangible capital assets. We had $207,000 of additions this year, which was the utility portion of the Waterloo project that was completed in that fiscal year. I'm now turning to B18, which is our special operating reserve statement of financial position. That's where our house with all the different floors. Floor 3 is water capital. Floor 4 is special capital fund. Floor 5 is special operating reserve. Floor 6 is trust, and 7 is equipment. So increase in the amount owing from the capital because of the ongoing capital projects. Reduction in amount owing from operations as interim financing that has been required has been decreased, and deferred revenue is funding from the province, which includes interest. That deferred revenue is revenue that we received from the province for either the pool or for the Mount Pleasant service extension. Special operating reserve financial activities and changes in fund balance. Page B19. Gain on disposal of assets were from vehicle trade-ins, so that's transfer from the operating fund. And a transfer from the operating fund includes the surplus. As you'll see, that 1.38 is in that 1.835 million. Difference between the surplus here and the surplus on note 10 is the surplus for special capital fund, which is restricted. So we're at the end of the expenses. Everyone's still awake. That's all good. I don't hear snoring. Now, the notes are made to augment information in the financial statements. So I'm not going to go through them all, but there are a few here that I really wanted to talk to you all about, especially because you're the new council. So let's go to page B25, receivables. So this breaks out the detail of the receivables to the municipality for both current and prior year. It's something that we should look at in terms of if our receivables are going out of control, that means we're not collecting taxes. People aren't paying their taxes. Is it an affordability issue? Is it a collection process issue? So we always break this out like this, and it's part of the financial information return that we report. So that's why that we have a note with all the detail on it. So note 5, which is B26 and 27, is our long-term debt, and we often talk about, you know, we're going to borrow for this, we're going to borrow for that, and I say borrowing is not necessarily a bad thing if you borrow it for investments in the future that are strategically planned. People always say, you know, we'd never use your own money, always borrow. And that's true if you are borrowing with intent. You have a plan, you know where the investments are need to be made. We, as a region of Queens, we have a very good debt ratio. We're healthy. So it shouldn't be something that you're afraid of, I guess is my point. And I want you all to see this is what we owe right now. So at the end of the year, we only owed $3.5 million. That's not bad at all. Note 6, B27, this is our tax sale surplus. So again, 2009, so we have to wait till 2029 till I can get my hands on that $520. Woo! I don't know what I'm going to do. Buy some milk with that. But I wanted you to see that we break that out every year so that we can take that in after the 20. And I always put in the note, like how much we made this year and how much was interest and how much we actually made from the surplus, from the tax sales, if you wanted to see it. So let's go to note 7, which is our asset retirement obligation. So the big one here is our landfill obligation. So what that does, it illustrates the liability that has been calculated to fund the proper disposal and monitoring and remediation of assets that require it. So the landfill is the biggest one. And so the current liability cost is calculated to be $15.8 million, and there's a reserve with a balance of 8.4 to fund the post-closure costs. So we are not fully funding our post-closure costs, and that's what I talked to you about during budget time. I say, you know, when I came, I think it was $18,000 a year went into that fund. Now it's $500,000 because we have to start catching up. There's a reserve, there's also, wait a minute, I'm confused. Here we go. Note 9. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about that? Because I know it's kind of a difficult maybe concept. Like, I know it's post-closure. It's just what we, as a government, because we operate that solid waste facility, we are required to monitor that landfill for 30 years after it's closed, which is going to take significant money. And so that's what we're talking about here. So when I say there's a liability cost, that's $15.8 million in today's dollars, and we have 8.4 in today's dollars. So, but we work on that every budget year. And it could change if we open a new cell. Again, things change. We just do our best with the information that we know. We currently do not have any money put aside to fund anything beyond the post-closure costs for our asset retirement obligations. Like we have buildings here, the lighthouse, the fire hall, there's a few of them. I thought I had them written down here, but I probably don't. These also will have asset retirement obligations, and we really should start putting some money away for that, and I'll be talking to you about that in budget next year. Note 9, this is all this is a big one this year because we have both councils, so that's discloses expenses and remuneration of council and CAO as required by Financial Reporting and Accounting Manual of Nova Scotia. The expense information requires quarterly reporting, that's why we all harass you to get your reports in, and post to the public website as required by the Municipal Government Act. CAO Georgia remuneration includes the severance. Note 10, B30. Reserves. We all talk about reserves and what we have in reserves and what it's for. So I made sure that there was a note in the financial statements for all of you so you can see exactly how much money is in each reserve. And I have them all named, and I've changed the names to make them more intuitive. So there are our reserves, our reserve balances. So the year-end surplus balance at the bottom, 3.7 million of this was committed spending. So you've already committed 3.7 of that when we did our 25-26 budget. Note 21, B39, zip across here. Again, this is one of the notes that I added when I came because we wanted to be a lot more transparent with council and with residents about our capital jobs. So here is the capital projects that we did. Here are the names of the projects, and this is how they're funded. So we have the total cost. The equipment is the equipment reserve. Operating is this. So operating is the sewer reserve. CCBF is our Canada Communities Building Fund, used to be called gas tax, okay? LFE, landfill equipment, general equipment, CCBF is gas tax and general equipment. So I put where those reserves come from, like where those balances come from, and then we have, so then you know exactly how much we paid and by what. Waterloo project is a partnership with the province and federal governments. And the street sweeper and Ware Lane were funded from the surplus pending LTD issue. So that means I had to borrow from the surplus until I got the debt, which I got this year so far. So that was all good. We traded in for a wheel loader not recorded in 23-24. The last thing is just the trust activity, and that's for Hillsview and the Scholarship Trust. There's nothing, out of the ordinary for either one of those. And I think that brings me to the end of my review. So does anyone have any questions?
I do, Director Vino, just on note 10 with respect to the reserves and just building off your analysis with respect to the fact that the post-closure reserve for the second-generation landfill really isn't sufficient based on what we think is the projected useful life of those cells. But then I also see that there's landfill equipment north of $500,000 in landfill equipment, and then also an operating reserve allocation for the second-generation landfill of approximately 5.9 million. And so the last one for the second generation landfill operating reserve, what's that intended for?
That's for if council decides to open a new cell.
Oh, okay.
So if council decides to open a new cell, and we put $150,000 a year during the budget in that reserve.
Right.
And so it's ready so that if council decides when the cells that we're currently using get full, that we have money there to open a new cell if that's what council decides.
And would that buy time for the post-closure to be?
It would.
Yeah.
It would, but you're also going to have increased post-closure costs because now you're going to have you got to have more real estate to do that with.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of considerations when you're operating a solid waste facility. So when they started, they said, okay, well, eventually we're going to need a new cell, so we're going to start saving for that cell now, which is great. If council decides in, I think it's 7 years, we estimate it to be the current cell. If council decides in 7 or 8 years that that you don't want to operate the facility anymore, that money is at the discretion of council.
Right, so you could ostensibly you could allocate the second generation landfill operating reserve to post-closure if it was the will of council at that time.
Now, there's also something that I think is very important for council to be aware. Councils, like our ratepayers, aren't the only contributors
Right.
to that post-closure. When we have tipping fees, a portion of that tipping fee is post-closure costs, right? And we've been kind of restricted in the amount that we can increase those post-closure costs with our contracted partners because of the agreements that were signed. And those are all up for renewal in the next year or year and a half. So it'll be something that will have to be factored in going forward. So the actual post-closure costs that will be included, I'm hopeful as the Director of Finance, in those contracts will be a more realistic reflection of what the actual post-closure costs are.
Thank you. Just further to your comment earlier, our past council felt like the money that we were allocating to the post-closure was adequate because you weren't going to open that second cell and close it at the same time. So it was extending that. So just for context, we talked about that several times, I think, in previous budgets. And we were comfy with it because you weren't going to do them both at the same time. So to your point, you could take, if you were dealing with if you're dealing with the post-closure, you wouldn't be doing the opening of the new cell. So you would take those funds, which was close to, I think, the estimated amount at that time. Thank you.
It's fascinating, the nuances of running a solid waste management facility. Yeah. Okay, great. Any other questions for Director Vino?
I do.
Go ahead, Councillor Wenzel.
I'm going to go back to B15 through to B17. First of all, the utility hearing rate, the rate study hearing, you said it's moved till November now. And does that affect our capital fund or any way and forth financially by moving that ahead a month?
Unfortunately, because we did the rate study to be the whole fiscal year, the reality of this is that by the time we get an approval from the board, the fiscal year will be almost over. So one of the test years that will be included in the rate study will be almost over by the time we get to the point where we can actually raise the rates, because we're going to ask, the UIB has to process the approval. So there's the hearing, and then they have to go through all the results of the hearing. So I don't know when I'm going to get that board order that says you can raise the rates, or even though you asked for this, we're going to give you this. Like, I don't know. But unfortunately, it doesn't change the numbers here because these are done, right? So, but what it will change is that instead of raising the rates per the new rates at April 1st, 2025, we're not going to get those rates increased until 2026 most likely, which is going to cause us not to make up the amount of the deficit we were going to make up. But again, when you look at the operating statement of this year, it's significantly less than was budgeted. And I think it's because, Director Grant is doing his absolute best to give us, he's conservative by nature, kind of like me. And so he, kind of budgets for the worst case scenario because of what he's thinking will happen. And luckily it didn't, right? So we saved a significant amount this year in terms of the deficit was, I think, 40% lower than we thought. So maybe that will help us next year. When we get to the end of the fiscal year. I'm hopeful.
With the deficit, you mean the funding deficit, correct? For the utilities, what do we call it? A utility capital fund.
The utility capital fund gets paid no matter what. Yeah. So if you look on, let's look on page B14. And if you look at the second section, it says operating expenditure. The last thing there is amortization. That's paid. It's an expense. It's built into the rate study, and it's built into our operating statement, and that gets paid no matter what. I take the cash out of the water utility bank and I move it to the water capital bank, like in a bank transfer. It's not a due to from. It's money goes from here, money goes to here. So it's not a loan. The actual cash is paid.
Continuous. If tomorrow a water line breaks somewhere in town, say it's significant, 300 meters or more, $500,000 or more. What happens? Where does that money come from? Do you again go through water utilities? It's a water line. It's a main water line.
So the Water Utility Capital Fund funds the projects that are on the capital list. So if it's a break, it's a leak, would be an operating expense for that year. If it was significant enough, we would probably apply to the UARB, because anything over 250, remember, has to be approved. So if we were in a situation where we had such a significant leak that was going to cost us such a significant amount of money, we would have to probably reach out to the regulator to make sure we found the best treatment for that. And we could ask for their permission to use some of that money to pay for that. We've gone to the regulatory board before and asked for their permission to use some of the money that was in an old reserve to apply for credits, for example, when we had that prolonged boil water advisory. So there's a process, but you have to ask, and it has to be logical, and it has to make sense for all the users of the utility. So if that were to happen, we would do that, because we understand we have to make the best decisions for all the members, all the people who use that utility. Because the utility's responsibility is to make sure all the users have safe, potable, reliable water.
Off subject, but I want to go back because I skipped it. On section 10, when you said the RCMP actual cost was more than budgeted, this is determined by provincial group. Do they let you know, how do they determine it, this provincial group, that was over budget?
I have received a letter in the past, but it's very general, like retroactive wages or things like that. I don't participate in the actual negotiation of the contract. I think that's done at the CAO level. So typically what we get in finance is a letter, and it's typically after the budget is done, that says your RCMP policing costs are going to be this, based on this.
I can speak to that a little bit. That it's one challenge municipalities are experiencing with the general duty contracted policing through the RCMP is unbudgeted expenses and lack of cost certainty with respect to the cost of policing. And in some conversations with some other municipalities, we do know too that there was another component of a collective bargaining agreement that was just closed out by the RCMP, and so there will be retro pay to officers that will have to wear that cost again. So there is challenges with respect to cost certainty and confidence in budgeting with respect to the cost of RCMP policing services. And that's an ongoing conversation and challenge that a lot of municipalities are having with respect to those policing services. Any other questions for Director Vino on the audited financial statements? I think it makes sense when you were talking about the line item being lower for the fuel, and then when we got a quarterly report, it was higher than expected, and so it's just that the fuel drop off hasn't occurred, and then is it just sort of that ebbs and flows, and that fuel drop off, we have big tanks, and when they're filled up, it's a big cost, and so sometimes it appears lower than budgeted and then higher than budgeted based on that. Yeah. So it checks out. It checks out, Vino. Thanks. Any other questions? Okay. I will look for a motion then that the Council of the Region of Queens Municipality approves where am I? Sorry, guys. What business item is this? That's helpful. I figured we'd be down a little bit further, Director Vino. Receives the report titled Audited Financial Statements Fiscal 24-25 for information. Moved by Councillor Jenkins, seconded by Councillor Carver. Any discussion or debate on it? Comments? Director Vino, how's the first and second motion that I have different from one another? Are they redundant, or do you need another motion?
Council has to formally adopt the statements,
Oh,
which
okay,
is the
formally
second one.
adopt.
So it formally
Okay.
they formally have to be adopted before
Okay,
they
so,
go to the.
okay, I'll ask then I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion? Approved. And another motion that the Council of Region of Queens Municipality adopt the audited financial statements for the fiscal year ended March 31st, 2025 as presented. Moved by Councillor Jenkins, seconded by Councillor Wenzel. Discussion? I want to say thanks to all the staff. I was able to attend the kind of final meeting that we had with the auditors, and it was quite interesting. And I just wanted to kind of some gratitude for our team too, the staff, but also the members, the volunteer members of the committee, and the members of council who sit on that committee. As part of that, the auditing process, we got a chance also to kind of go a little bit like closed session in camera and just be able to, without the staff present, speak with the auditors. And I know throughout that conversation, it became quite apparent too of the great strides that we've made as an organization with respect to our financial controls. And that in previous iterations of undergoing this process, there was a lot of stuff that was coming forward from the auditors in terms of things that we needed to do better with respect to our accounting practices and the controls that we have in place, and that clearly, and that's a testament to the good work of our staff, that now it's very much like clean audit, and everybody was very pleased with it. So I just wanted to say a big thanks to staff and to the members of council and to the volunteer committee members for all the work you did in preparing the audited financial statement. I greatly appreciate it. Anything from anybody else on it? Okay. I'll ask the question on all those in favor of formally adopting it. That's moved. Thanks very much, Director Bino. Okay, on to 7.2, which is the council implementation report. Now, the council implementation report has been prepared by our municipal clerk, Angela Green. She is not present and here today in council chambers because she is attending the AMANS conference in Sydney. But I wanted to see if there was any questions, comments, concerns in review of the implementation report that was provided. I did on behalf of the clerk, wanted to just, as I know that haven't received these in this term of council in this format, and just as a heads up to you that items that are marked as complete on this, you'll see them once as complete, and then the next time the implementation report comes back, they'll be removed from there, just so that we don't have this endless accumulation of motions and business items that are being actioned by our staff. And so if you see there are some of the items are marked as complete on here, this will be the last time that they appear on the implementation report. The next time the implementation report comes forward, they'll be excluded from it. If that makes sense to you folks? But I'm not sure if there are any comments, questions, concerns on any of the content that is contained in the implementation report. I certainly appreciate it. I think this is helpful to understand the various motions that have been put forward by this council and by previous terms of council, and the progress that's being made, or the current status of some of these. Some of them are quite direct and easy, and other ones are very complex projects, complex undertakings. But I'm not sure. Any notes, council, on any of the? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Charlton.
Thank you. I think under July the 8th, it says there's an action item, no motion. It was suggested by council that the cost and feasibility of installing pedestrian activated flashing lights at the intersection be investigated. Also mentions about concerns raised about poor accessibility, with a recommendation for further discussion and improvements. I believe that was the conversation about the Main and Market study. And it does mention here about a staff report dated for today, so I think that might be an error, because there's no staff report attached for that. So just, that was something that I wanted to flag. I'm not sure if there's anything else.
Yes, thanks for flagging that one, Deputy Mayor. I saw that one as well, and I do see that there was a staff report for today's meeting, which of course is not actually contained here. And then also in review of, this was the meeting that I actually was on vacation for, in review of the recording from that, there was some lively discussion, I think, and particularly expectations articulated by Councillor Amaro with respect to improvements here. And that in that presentation provided by CBCL at that time as well, there are suggested improvements. And so these haven't actually come back in a report. So perhaps a good treatment for this, if there, well, maybe, so that's, I think, a substantive question that would be great to put to ask the municipal clerk when she's available to ask the question. And so maybe what we, rather than receiving it tonight, maybe what we could do is move to table this for next meeting. So this and any other relevant questions could be directed to the municipal clerk. Does that make sense? Or? Yeah, well, yes, I have a draft motion to receive it as circulated. But I think it might be appropriate to table this until, to table the report until we could actually get clarification on that one with the municipal clerk.
I'll move to table that
Okay.
until the next meeting of council.
Seconded by Councillor Amaro. Is there anything further, any further questions or concerns or areas to highlight for the municipal clerk in advance of the next meeting? Okay, so it'd be good to get clarity on this business item anyway, because we will seek to have a substantive motion with respect to that business item, I think is appropriate. So is there any further debate or discussion on the motion? Yeah, is it clear the nature of the motion? The recording secretary? Oh, pardon me, it was seconded by Councillor Amaro, pardon me. And the motion's clear, Madam Secretary? Okay. All those in favor, tabling it for now? Thanks. Okay, that's it for staff reports. No bylaws or policies coming forward to council today. For correspondence for action, we did have the one correspondence for action added by Councillor Fancy. So this is on the letter that we received just today from Jane's Place Society. I'm not sure, Councillor Fancy, would you like to speak to it, the letter that we received?
Yes, do you want me to read the letter?
Can if you
first?
like, yeah,
Okay.
sure. Sure,
And
it's
then
brief,
explain a
so
little bit.
it's quite concise.
Mr. Mayor and councillors of Region of Queens Municipality, our committee is working on second stage housing for women leaving transition houses. From the research we've done and from consulting with other groups working on this issue, second stage housing is the most urgent need for women and their families leaving intimate partner violence. We have created a board and are in the process of becoming a non-profit society. We would like a letter of support from the Region of Queens Municipality, which we will use with our requests for funding from various levels of government. We are meeting with the public on the 29th of September and October 2nd, and would like to share that. We have your support. Along with that, those two dates that she's got in there, the 29th of September will be in the fire hall here in Liverpool at 6:30, and October 2nd will be out to the fire hall in North Queens.
Thanks. And so the letter is from Ms. Deborah Herman Spartanelli, who's in her capacity as the chair of the Jane's Place Society. So perhaps a motion that the Region of Queens Municipality directs staff to prepare a letter of support to be signed by the mayor for the Jane's Place Society. Moved by Deputy Mayor Charlton, seconded by Councillor Jenkins. Discussion? Debate? Councillor Jenkins?
I only have a brief comment, and it's just from my experience with running a business, and I've seen so many partners have had to evacuate a living situation that I think as a council and as a region, we should be doing whatever we can possible to move this forward.
Thank you, Councillor Jenkins. Anybody else like to speak to it? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Charlton.
Thank you. And further to that, I used to sit on the Housing Action Coalition Committee in my previous term, and we had a few conversations about how this was not available in Queens. And I believe in Bridgewater, there's only 15 beds, so that's not a lot when you think of it. And of course, the rise of domestic violence has been significant just in the last 2 to 3 years. And so when you think of women who need to leave those situations, as Councillor Jenkins mentioned, if you're a mom and you're in that situation and you have children, you're not going to go to a different community where your kids can't stay and have some normalcy. So I think that this is a step in the right direction, and I thank the members who are working hard to get this. I think it's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, and I did want to highlight that one such member is our member of our council. Councillor Fancy has been very generous with his time in contributing to the work of this group, and the generous contributions from the Schelling family as well, who've sort of contributed some seed funding for taking this initiative forward. It is an identified a goal with respect to community wellness in the strategic priorities that we've identified as a council that we're going to be sharing with the community next month to be part of a solution and contribute to support for people experiencing intimate partner violence, those families experiencing intimate partner violence. So I would be very, very pleased to sign a letter of support for this group. I will say, just for clarity, that the group Jane's Place Society have the name and are awaiting nonprofit status, and that submission is in process, and they expect to have that imminently. But they don't presently. They aren't listed on the joint registry of joint stocks as a nonprofit organization, but that's imminent. But in any case, it's not that. And of course, for this group to be able to take advantage of funding envelopes, like for example the Community Investment Fund for us or other orders of government, they do need to get their host in order with respect to their being registered. But this is more just broadly a letter of support from our organization for the work that's being undertaken by the organization. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Fancy.
Yes, further to that, it's when we're looking at here, we're looking at second stage housing. So right now we have Harbor House in Bridgewater and Chrysalis House up in Kentville, and they would be your transition housing. And so they would be women in particular coming from those houses that need to get back before they get back into society would be the second stage housing, which is where we're looking at right at this particular time. There's a problem without the province of there really isn't any second stage housing, and that so a lot of times women going from Harbor House have to go somewhere, and a lot of times go back into the same situation that they came out of. So this is it's very well known in the province of what the need is. So that's what we're looking at this particular time. We're going to be trying to work with Harbor House because they have the counsellors and everything and others that the needs, so we can be able to work together and work in unison with.
Right. And I know in speaking with the members too that there is interest in exploring if there's an opportunity to have a limited availability of a crisis shelter as needed, but that a recognition that there's structural and system-wide need for this second stage housing. Yeah. Okay, great. Any further comments, questions on the correspondence? Okay, I'll ask the question. All those in favor of the letter of support? Okay. Great. At that, I will call for a brief recess. If we could please reconvene at 7:20, folks. Thanks very much. Okay, folks, gonna call the meeting back to order. We have also, under correspondence for information, received a letter from Al Moore of Hanley Point. He's a property owner in the Malaga Lakes area, asserting much of what we had heard from during public comments at the last meeting. He didn't have the opportunity to attend the meeting or file any correspondence prior to the meeting, and so wanted this included as correspondence for information. Any questions, comments, concerns on the correspondence from Mr. Moore? Okay. Hearing none. I'll move along. No reports from in camera at today's meeting, which brings us to my report, the mayor's report. So a couple updates for folks. On September 10th, council and a couple members of our senior management team had the opportunity to attend an asset management planning workshop that was prepared and delivered by our asset management coordinator. I think thanks to the staff involved in delivering and preparing and delivering that workshop, I think it was really interesting. I think gives us as council members a better understanding of how to understand and digest the technical details that are included in an asset management plan, and they're a really important lever for us to have access to as decision makers, as we seek to ensure that we are responsibly managing the assets that we have within the region of Queens Municipality. So thanks to our asset management coordinator for his efforts with respect to that. September 13th, I attended the renaming ceremony for what is now the Richard Freeman Community Park. I think is that right? Richard Freeman Community Park in Greenfield. I was joined by Councillor Jenkins, who also offered a few words, and some other members of council were present there as well, past and present members of council. It was a great turnout. It was a lovely day. We were also joined by the Honourable Kim Maslin, and many community members as they celebrate Rich's legacy and renaming. He was very passionate about that community park, and a big part of seeing that community park be constructed. And so I think it was really wonderful to be able to honor him and his family on that day. September 17th, members of staff and council went up we met up in Caledonia for the Queens County Fair Parade. And so thanks to the organizers of the fair for all their efforts, and to staff who pulled together a very nice overalls and heydays themed float. We won second prize on the float, so big thanks for that. It's always great to get up to North Queens. On September 18th, I had the honor to attend the PEMSIC Conservation Mosaic Project's. It was called a sharing event. Now, Council, if you remember, Melissa Labrador wrote to Council asking for support for the PEMSIC Conservation Mosaic Project. And I'm happy to report that project has really it got some traction. There were representatives at the sharing event from Wahobama First Nations, from the Nature Conservancy of Canada, from Nova Scotia Nature Trust, from Birding Nova Scotia. I may have had the name of that wrong, but Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society, Nova Scotia chapter, Parks Canada were there, Nova Scotia Environment Climate Change, Tourism Nova Scotia. And so really incredible amount of momentum with respect to the conservation mosaic. And I think a lot of potential for our region. Most of the mosaic falls within Queens County. Some of it falls within Shelburne County as well. Actually, the artwork from Miss Labrador that's featured in council chambers, that is the shape of the conservation mosaic as it's superimposed over the map. Anyway, I was incredibly honored to participate in what is an exciting Indigenous-led initiative, and a big shout out to Melissa Labrador for her vision and her leadership and tireless contributions. And it was really neat. CPAW, which is the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society, they've been doing a bunch of free diving, surveying all kinds of coastal areas that would be part of the proposed conservation area. And they have found what is really vibrant and diverse flora and fauna in our waters as part of that free diving. And they've actually, like, it's not publicly out there, broadly available, I guess, but they've actually identified a sea creature that's never before been documented in our waters, which is really cool. And so this, just for clarity, the conservation mosaic, it's not about, it wouldn't, for example, it wouldn't limit the lobster fishery. It wouldn't take away from responsible forestry practices. It's about constructing, having the conservation mosaic is about creating a space whereby deliberate and intentional sort of uses of the land and the sea are taken forward, and bringing all those partners together, be it the industry, be it Parks Canada, be it the various conservation organizations, and coming up with a like I say, it's a mosaic, coming up with a sort of community approach to dealing with and this is unique because for the most part you have marine protected areas and you have conserved areas on land. It's very rare that you would have a conservation area that that spans land and sea. And anyway, so I think there'll be lots more exciting updates coming out of that project. September 22nd, I attended so this week, yesterday, I attended a mayors, wardens, deputies, and CAOs table with representatives from the 5 municipal units in Lunenburg County. I think my understanding is this is the first time that Queens has had a seat at that table. And I was accompanied by CAO Thorpe. Deputy Mayor Charlton had to send her regrets, but is hoping to make the next meeting of that. They meet every other month or quarterly, depending, and rotating sort of chairs. But it's a really promising opportunity for collaboration and alignment with our neighboring municipalities in Lunenburg County. Some of those insights that I shared with respect to the RCMP policing, those are things that I learned in conversation with the warden and mayors that were at the table yesterday and discussing their experience with policing. So I think a really valuable opportunity for collaboration with those municipal units. And then otherwise, we've been pretty busy over the past few weeks preparing our draft strategic plan and priorities to be shared with the community at a series of town hall engagement sessions, and then more broadly for folks who can't attend an individual session, but disseminating those draft documents broadly and looking for feedback via a survey. Those are all forthcoming, both the design and deployment of a survey, as well as those engagement sessions. But there will be, keep your eye out for notices that will be promoted through various channels. It'll be on the radio. It's going to be in some of the newspapers. It's going to be on our social media content on our website. But I will tell you, just in case you are interested in holding the date, all of the sessions are going to be held in the evenings. And they will be at the Liverpool Fire Hall on October 16th, the Milton Hall October 17th, Mersey Point Hall October 20th, West Queens Recreation Center October 21st, Greenfield Fire Hall October 23rd, Port Medway Fire Hall October 24th, and the North Queens Fire Hall October 27th. And those sessions are going to be an opportunity to get your feedback about the draft vision, mission, and strategic priorities for the Region of Queens Municipality, and then also just as an opportunity for broader based question and answers with members of council. So mark the date in your calendar. We look forward to seeing you. The times, there's variable times, so just keep an eye out for, they're all in the evening. They're all in the evening, but they're variable times from one location to the next. I think, is that not right? Okay. In our calendars, they're variable times. Okay. They're all at 6:30? Okay. They are all at 6:30. Liverpool, October 16th. Milton, October 17th. Mersey Point Hall, October 20th. West Queens Rec Center, October 21st. Greenfield Fire, October 23rd. Port Medway Fire, October 24th. North Queens Fire Hall, October 27th at 6:30 p.m. Okay.
Someone's gonna keep you alive.
Yeah. Well, but they're in different times on my calendar, so I'm gonna have to fix that. They're all earlier than 6:30 though, so. Or yeah, okay. I'll stop there. That's it for my mayor's report. Any questions on that? Deputy Mayor Charlton, any questions? No? Okay. Okay, and then we have, moving on to section 13, just council reports or business from members of council. Councillor Jenkins, 13.1, just on the Freeman lumber presentation follow-up. Do you want to speak to that, please?
Good evening. At our regular council meeting of July the 8th, 2025, Freeman Lumber provided a presentation regarding the forest lands of the region of Queens County. The presentation's main focus, I believe, was on what Freeman Lumber could do to provide and strengthen the region-owned forest properties through sustainable forest management. That any fiber removal will be done on a sustainable basis for the long-term benefit of the forest as well as the region of Queens Municipality and its stakeholders, which are the residents and the landowners. As someone who has a forestry background and has seen the improvements to forest management both in Queens and beyond, I feel it is important that we take advantage of a forest management plan for several reasons. One is to improve the improvement of the forest for climate resilience. Another is the improvement of the forest to increase its ecological value, which will help to mitigate environmental disturbance from fire, storm damage, and insects. It will also provide sustainable monies to the region of Queens that could be used for programs not currently supported by the region for the betterment of all its citizens and landowners. And also, upgrading of our forest infrastructure will help in case of fire and would allow the region to promote areas for recreation with access maintenance provided within the forest management plan. In conclusion, I would like to ask the council's support to have staff prepare a report for council's consideration regarding entering into a long-term forest management plan with Freeman Lumber. That this report be done in a timely manner and presented to council at the second regular meeting of council in October. Thank you very much.
Questions, comments, concerns? Councillor Wenzel? Sorry, Councillor Jenkins, can you please turn off your microphone?
Does anybody know from staff? Okay. Would anybody in staff know if this is unreasonable? Like, that's just 2 meetings away from now. That's quite an extensive report, isn't it, to be ready by October? Are we okay with that? I mean, I don't write them.
I believe it's a reasonable amount of time. Our asset manager would probably be involved with this as well, and he has a lot of forestry background and insight into what could be done, and I think it's generally just to give us some information to decide if we want to actually pursue this forest management plan.
My concern would be, is this not something that we should be putting out to tender as opposed to sole sourcing to Freeman's Lumber?
I think if we're going to put it out to tender, I think we should have a staff report on it first so that other people are tendering on the same basis as what Freeman's has come up with, so that we can review any offers or any input from other people, comparing apples to apples instead of apples to oranges.
So, sorry, can you reframe what your proposed motion was going to be, though? I just, because it was directed to, I think my understanding of the proposed motion was that it was exclusive to Freeman's Lumber. But perhaps I misunderstood your proposed motion.
Mayor Christian, you're absolutely right. It was with Freeman Lumber, and that was an error on my part. I think we just need to know the basis for getting into a forest management plan moving forward, and the staff could write up that information, the good parts and the bad parts, of it so that we can be informed.
Okay, so I think maybe we could strengthen it to direct staff to create a report that would also give a framework for an RFP or a tendering document that could be used to facilitate that.
I think that would generally be a good idea. Then we wouldn't run into a conflict with somebody who would come to the table late saying that they didn't know anything about it. It would remove that from the equation, and we can move on from there.
Councilor Merrill?
I'm just wondering if we could give staff a little more time than 2 weeks, like maybe the end of the month? Oh, it's 4 weeks?
It was second week, the second of October.
Oh, okay, okay.
If it's, I mean, I'll discuss it with the CAO. If there are challenges with staff capacity to churn it out, I mean, we'll just, that would be communicated, and then we'll, have to go from there with respect to the timeline. But do you want to, Councillor Jenkins, would you like to articulate a motion that we could debate? I just want to get a motion on the floor.
I was told by the CAO that we didn't need a motion for a staff report.
I'd like to get a motion. I'm the boss.
Okay. Since you would like to have a motion, I will let you.
Does anybody have? You have it in
say
front of you. Come on, Jenkins. Okay, I'll take a crack right off the dome. That the Council of the Region of Queens Municipality direct staff to prepare a report with respect to a forestry management plan and. Do you want to take a crack at a motion? Or maybe staff?
To move, I think the motion should read to direct staff to prepare a report for next steps for a forestry management plan, which includes potential framework for an RFP.
I'm okay with that. Are you okay with that, Madam Recording Secretary? Does that make sense? Okay, is there, would anybody like to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Jenkins. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Councillor Carver. Debate or discussion? Councillor Wetzel.
We need the motion to be specific to municipally owned property, or is it a broad general?
I think that's what we're talking about, right? I think that's what we're talking about is municipally owned property, right? Yeah. Okay, then. What I'm going to look for then is an amendment to the motion to include with respect to municipally owned property. So is there, Councillor Wenzel, would you like to move for that amendment? Is there a second to the amendment? Seconded by Councillor Carver. Recording Secretary, is that clear to you what the amendment is? Any debate or discussion, not on the substantive motion, but on the amendment to include the language with respect to municipally owned property? All those in favor of the amendment? Okay, now back to the original motion. Any further debate or discussion on the substance of the motion? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Charlton.
Just to comment that in my motion, I didn't articulate a time frame, but I think that if we don't put that specific time, then that would be more fair to staff, because we don't know what this would entail or the capacity of the folks who need to work on this. So I just wanted to highlight that, because Councillor Jenkins did identify a timeline in the beginning. I did not, and so I just want to make sure that everyone's okay with that, and if not, we would require a further amendment. Thanks.
We can put in another amendment. Councillor Jenkins, are you okay with it?
The reason I wanted to have a time frame in here is so that down the road, 5 months, we weren't looking at one of these sheets that was provided with things that was in progress. I think it's can be done in a timely fashion, and
Okay.
it gives them 5 weeks to do it. So that's all I have to say.
We can, so a couple options. We can look to amend the motion, or what we can do is ensure that the minutes reflect some expectation of urgency, and that this is being a priority item of the council. But it's up to you. Whatever you're comfortable with, Councillor Jenkins. You okay? Okay. and okay for you? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Fancy.
Just a couple of questions along with it, though. It's I know we looked at this a couple of years ago, or maybe it's longer than that. Time flies. But we'd gone through this process, and of course, we had to put it out for tenders, and it just kind of fell away. So I think what Councillor Jenkins is proposing is good, that we at least keep it onto a time frame of where we're going. But I noticed in the motion, we're talking about municipally owned land. Are we looking at, because that can be so broad, a municipally owned land, are we going to be looking to try to do something for that? Or are we looking for the land out in the Greenfield area that we want to have someone manage the force? I mean, that's different than just municipally owned land.
Yeah, woodlands, I think, is what we're talking about, right? Municipally owned woodlands. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Heather?
Just to clarify, the motion does read a forestry management plan with respect to municipally owned property. So I think that it may be implied that it would be forested land.
Yep. I think that's probably the case. Everybody comfortable with the motion? I think we know what the intent of the motion is. We haven't voted on it. No. Yeah, we voted on the amendment, yeah. I know just, and I think that it's going to be part of the report, and we'll have an opportunity to look into it, but that we just, certainly, you know, in conversation with residents also following the presentation, which was really well done by Freeman's, but that we are definitely committed to ensuring that all of the property adjacent to the Town Lake Reservoir, that we prohibit any commercial or industrial activity that would be directly impact the watershed, and all those adjacent lands immediately beside the Town Lake Reservoir, and so that's going to be. So I'm not sure if that makes sense to put that, you know, that note with respect to the staff who look at this. I'm sure that that's always a consideration when you're looking at something like this. But I had heard that voiced as well. But I think it makes a lot of sense for us to have a plan for how we're handling the assets that are the municipally owned woodlands. So I appreciate it. Thanks very much, Councillor Jenkins. If there's no further debate or discussion on it, I will ask the question. All those in favor of the motion? It's carried. And Councillor Jenkins, you're up again, 13.2. Region 6 Solid Waste Committee report. Take it away.
On September 12th, the Region 6 Solid Waste Intermunicipal Committee held a meeting at Queen's Place. There was a few takes from it. We also had online attendance. There was much discussion about the extended producer responsibility and how municipalities across Nova Scotia are not being treated 100% by circular materials, and things are being slow to be arranged and agreed upon, but all levels are working on that. We're getting closer to the finish line regarding the EPR, with some of the small details are still needing to be worked out. As mentioned previously, the fact that small ICI, which is industrial, commercial, and institutional, was previously not allowed with the collection. That has been changed to allow for pickup to go with regular garbage pickups around the region, which was a win for Queens County. Waste Reduction Week will be the third week in October, with the theme being focused on thrifting. Information can be found on the Divert Nova Scotia website under Swap, Share, Thrift, and Repair. Gives you a good insight on some things that can be kept out of the landfill moving forward. Currently in Region 6, there's tons of fabric being dumped into the landfill every week, and most of that can be recycled through different organizations. Angela Taylor from the Region 6 committee has been doing student education, with over 1,600 students being involved in waste information programs in the Region 6 areas, which is in Queens County right up through to Hants County and Shelburne and whatnot. There's been interaction with education programs with the municipalities, and they have been having good discussions moving forward. That's all I have to report at this time. Thank you.
Any questions for Councillor Jenkins on his committee report from the Region 6 Solid Waste Committee? Hearing none. Thanks very much, Councillor Jenkins. Moving on to new business, 14.1 is the pre-approval for debenture issuance. I'll ask Director Vino to come on back up and provide us with an overview of 14.1, please.
Hi again, everybody. The replacement of Asset 202, which was a tandem dump truck, was included in our 24-25 capital investment plan. The replacement vehicle is a 2025 International Tandem Dump Truck, was ordered in the spring of 2024 and arrived in the summer of 2025. It was therefore carried over to our 25-26 capital investment plan. The replacement of this asset was budgeted to be funded by debentures. Staff are requesting to participate in the fall 2025 Municipal Finance Corporation debenture process for this asset. To participate, a resolution for pre-approval of debenture issuance subject to interest rate, which is attached to the report, must be completed and approved by council. In addition, this resolution must be approved by the Minister of Finance before the debenture process can proceed. If you remember, there was a council meeting on August the 12th where I brought the temporary borrowing resolution forward to council when we had this conversation, which was step one. And that temporary borrowing resolution goes to the Department of Municipal Affairs. The minister has to approve the borrowing, which we have. That is done. He has approved it. I have the return TBR in the office. So this is kind of my final step to kind of rubber stamp it from council and to get the package ready to go to the Municipal Finance Corporation to be included in the debenture issuance for the fall. The debenture amount requested will be $220 to be retired over 10 years. Again, that's all included in our budget. And the original budget for this project was actually more because we were able to secure a trade-in value of an old asset to reduce the cost to $220,000.
Great, thank you, Director Vino. Any questions on this one? Okay, I'll look for a motion that the Council of Region of Queens Municipality approves a resolution for pre-approval of a debenture issuance subject to interest rates at a value of $220,000. Moved by Councillor Jenkins, seconded by Councillor Carver. Any debate or discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Okay. Next up, we have the Community Investment Fund. Mr. Burns, Community Economic Development Officer, could you please come forward, provide us with an overview of the Brooklyn Recreation Capital request? Oh, right, yes. Go ahead. I got a point of order, I think, from Councillor Marrow. Want to go ahead?
I just need to declare a conflict of interest to this matter, please.
Thank you, Councillor Marrow. If you could please step outside of the chambers, and we'll ask you to return to council after we deal with the business item. Thanks very much. Okay, take it away, Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Mayor Christian. As you mentioned, before you have a capital request under the Community Investment Fund for Brooklyn Recreation this evening. And I'll just give you a few highlights of the staff report. To remind you, total funding made available for the CIF this fiscal year was totaled $175,000. The operating investment portion applications closed on January 31, 2025. All other means of applying for funding under the investment fund, such as event and tournament, travel and training, and capital, remain open until the fund is spent. Currently, remains about $71,000, and we're about halfway through the year. So, just a few highlights within the rest of the report. The application under consideration this evening under capital is considered under B, which is the second of three options that we can consider capital requests by. This says that 50% of funding of eligible expenses for alterations or improvements to existing community infrastructure that will prolong the life of facility for 10 years or increase usage to a maximum of $50,000. A little history on Brooklyn Rec. So Brooklyn Rec, a not-for-profit, of course, and they operate, under their purview, they operate Brooklyn Community Hall. And the facility certainly is viewed as an important element of local community life. The organization over the past few years has completed a number of capital upgrades to the building, working with Efficiency Nova Scotia. And some of these projects included addition of heat pumps, heat recovery system, LED lighting, insulation, new doors, and recently new windows. And these improvements all contribute to extending the life of the facility, the safety and comfort of patrons, and assist in attracting additional revenue for the Brooklyn Rec. The request for funding before you is focused on refurbishing and refreshing the internal spaces within the facility, which have reportedly been untouched for near a decade. So recently, with the window repairs, etc., there's also there's trim work to be done. There's gyprock repair work to be done in association with the installation of heat pumps and the windows, and they want to refurbish and redecor the both levels of the facility, up and downstairs in all areas. This is an additional project in their budget year that they've taken on. So multiple quotes for services and supplies were submitted. And the funding amount that is calculated is based on the lower of quotations received at a rate of 50% exclusive of HST. So at this point, I just want to remind you that you may see the request up top here for $8,976, and that is the amount that they did request, and that was based on the higher of quotes. Once the funding formula goes into play, we're looking at the lower of quotes. So at the lower of quotes, applied at 50% exclusive of HST, the value that you are considering is $5,999.71. The organization, we're very gracious, back and forth, a little bit of answered some probing questions, etc. And they indicated that they will capitalize these expenditures on their financial statements. Now, in consultation internally, we can say that accounting best practice would not normally consider painting and repairing a trim to be a capital expense. However, it could be considered the final phase of capital work that has taken place over the last year, involving considerable investment in the hall and remediation of damage caused by the installation. So before you is a request or a recommendation to approve $5,999.71.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Council, any questions, concerns? Can I get a motion that the Council of the Region of Queens Municipality provide grant funding of up to $5,999.71 to Brooklyn Recreation for eligible capital investment project expenses to be funded from the 2025-2026 Community Investment Fund? Moved by Councillor Carver. Is there a second? Seconded by Councillor Roy. Any debate? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Councillor Jenkins, could you please get our colleague back to the council chambers? Thank you. Councillor Romero. The next item of business is 14.3 on the MIP Regional Partnerships Study. And we have Mr. Elaine, our project officer, who's going to provide us with a brief overview of that business item. Take it away, Richard.
Thank you, Mayor Christian. Evening all. So at budget time, Council approved the allocation of $10,000 in anticipation of a successful application to the Municipal Innovation Programme, which was a request for support into an in-depth study into regional economic development. That application was successful, and the province is offering $50,000 towards this project, but they require a specific motion from partnering councils to endorse the application. So that's what's before you just now.
Any questions for Richard on this business item? I think so. This also came up at the mayors, wardens, CAOs, and deputies meeting with the 5 municipal units, who would be the co-sponsors of this project and of this study. I think it's really important that we explore economic growth, economic development opportunities in partnership with our regional counterparts. I can provide an update that the RFP is set to close October 16th. It's being led by the Economic Development Department within the Municipality District of Lunenburg, and so they were able to provide the update that the RFP is set to close October 16th, with the report being completed sometime around February is what they're expecting or anticipating, I think.
Yeah, that's correct, with an overall project completion date of end of September 26th.
Okay, great. Thank you. So any further comments, questions on that? Okay, I will look for a motion that the Council of the Region of Queens Municipality endorse the application and contribute $10,000 toward the 2025-2026 Municipal Innovation Program for the Regional Economic Partnership Study Project. Moved by Deputy Mayor Charlton. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Councillor Jenkins. Any debate or discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you, Richard. Moving right along, 14.4 is on municipal dry hydrants, and we have our Manager of Public Works, Garrett Chetwin, who's going to provide us with an overview on that business item. Take it away, Garrett.
All right, first thing I want to start off with is apologizing because I've noticed a mistake. There's a map that's missing, so I'll make sure that the municipal clerk gets that circulated to you as soon as possible. And another mistake in that beginning opening paragraph is that it mentions that there were 3 dry hydrants slated for install this fiscal year, Mary Lake, Westfield Road, and the missing one, which is the one as part of the recommendation, is on Charlotte Lake, and that location is just behind the North Queens Nursing Home. So, with all those mistakes out of the way, the Region of Queens currently owns and maintains 51 municipal dry hydrants located on municipal, provincial, and private lands across Queens County, which you'd know if you had the map. These hydrants are essential for fire protection in rural areas where there are no pressurized hydrants, such as the red hydrants that you see throughout Liverpool and Brooklyn. These hydrants are fueled by ponds, lakes, streams, whether man-made or natural, that fire departments can draw from during emergencies in these rural locations. The National Fire Protection Association Standard 1142 sets out the requirements for these rural firefighting water supplies. To qualify as an adequate supply, a source must be able to deliver 950 liters per minute for 2 hours, or about 114,000 liters in total. Water supplies must also be accessible year-round, accounting for drought, freezing, and other environmental limitations. In our region, many hydrants and ponds were put in place over time without being formally designed to meet this standard. As a result, some sources are simply too small or unreliable to provide the water volume needed for a major fire event. Meeting this standard requires not just installing hydrants, but ensuring that water bodies that they are connected to are large enough, deep enough, and accessible enough to sustain that level of use. Local conditions like shallow bedrock, drought, freeze-thaw cycles, and sediment buildup make this particularly challenging throughout Queens. Maintenance is also an ongoing requirement. Vegetation needs to be cleared. fittings and signage inspected, and annual flow tests to confirm whether suction can be achieved at these hydrants. Since 2023, 96 work orders have been completed on our hydrants. 4 remain outstanding at this time, including one in Liverpool that is out of service, which we've had a number of challenges with in the last couple years, and that's slated to be replaced as part of an upcoming capital project. So with this, maintenance only happens when the necessary information gets passed along. The Protective Services Coordinator plays a key role here, acting as the link between the fire departments, who are the ones using the hydrants, and our Public Works Department, who are the ones completing the work. Requests are submitted by the fire service, logged into our work order system, and scheduled for completion by our Public Works staff. Without that communication, we don't know where problems exist and what needs to be addressed. Turning to the budget, $40,000 was set aside this fiscal year for 3 new hydrants in North Queens. A request for pricing was initially posted to the provincial procurement site, which received no responses back. That same request for pricing was then issued to local contractors. And when that closed, we received 1 submission, which came in at $40,000, and that's for the installation of the hydrant behind the North Queens Nursing Home on Charlotte Lake. Obviously, that $40,000 was slated for 3 hydrants, so it's significantly more than anticipated. So at this time, we're recommending, if we wish to get that completed this fiscal year, getting that hydrant installed and then moving the other 2 hydrants to the coming fiscal year.
Thank you, Mr. Chetwin. Questions, Council, on the report? Councilor Jenkins.
What is usually the average cost of putting in a dry hydrant?
Very good question. So in my time with the region of Queens, we've only installed 1 hydrant. That was in Port Medway, I believe, Eastport. At that time, we don't necessarily have the records to indicate how much that costs. So between breaking out the staffing for a particular event from maintenance, as well as where our equipment costs don't get broken out to individual projects, they're all in one lump sum. So being able to compare the price received from this contractor to what it's historically cost us in-house to get these installed is difficult to compare apples to apples on.
I somehow feel that where $40,000 was allotted for 3 hydrants, so we're looking at less than $15,000 a hydrant. To me, $40,000 seems like a money gouge and I don't agree with that. I don't know what to say to them. I'm just flabbergasted that a $40,000 hydrant when other places put them in for 20, 18 is kind of high priced.
And so, it sounds like previous installation of dry hydrants was done in-house by our own teams, but the recommendation here is that we contract it out. Do you know what the justification is for that?
For sure. So I guess with all of our trying to complete other projects and whatnot and trying to prioritize, these are some of the smaller, more independent projects that don't necessarily interface with some of our larger infrastructure, whether that's sidewalks, water lines within Liverpool, for instance, that our team is a bit more specialized in. These are kind of good, solid projects that are further away from some of our larger infrastructure, and good-sized projects that we felt local contractors would be able to handle.
Well, I'm not against dry hydrants going in. I am against 1 hydrant costing what 3 was expected to cost, and I'm totally against spending that $40,000 for 1 hydrant.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Sheldon.
For clarity, are these 3 dry hydrants functioning now? Like, could you comment on that? Of course, we have seen some comments online about dry hydrants and things like that, and so, although I hear Councillor Jenkins and what he's saying, I'm also concerned that by us not taking action, if you could comment on that.
Yeah, so these 3 dry hydrants currently do not exist. They're new installations. Yeah, so they would be in addition to the 51 dry hydrants we currently have. So these locations typically come at the request of the fire departments in those jurisdictions.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Merrim.
So of the 51, do we know how many is operational?
So our staff does semi-annual inspections as recommended by that guideline. So we did one in the spring where we do our flow testing. Obviously this time of year is not a good time for flow testing because we don't want to waste that resource. The 6 months usually starts the beginning of October, and our crews have been out the last week cleaning some of those dry hydrants up and doing inspections. Unfortunately, as you know, it's been a very dry summer with very little rain. There are some hydrants that are on more natural pieces of the landscape, rivers and whatnot. There are also hydrants that are just man-made ponds, as you'll see kind of going through some of the areas. So as those dry up, there's not necessarily anything to refill it, similar to a well. At this point, I don't have a good guess as to how many. A lot of it is based on the water conditions. So we would have done the flow testing in the spring, and at that point, it was those 4 that were non-operational that we're still working on, and that's mainly around issues with connections. Like I said, there are some older dry hydrants that use some older technology, so there's just some minor repairs to be made there.
And so the $110,000 budget line item in the 2025-2026 operational budget, a lot of that is for the maintenance and repair of the existing 51, is that right?
For sure. So that maintenance money would include, us going out and brush cutting, also during the winter months. So once we wrap up snow removal events in and around the Liverpool area, then we're out to clean those dry hydrants out. So that takes a significant amount of staff time too to go out and plow those hydrants. So that's all included as that maintenance line.
Further questions for Mr. Chetwin? Go ahead, Councillor Carver.
I know it's a lot of money, I agree, but they've been waiting for it for quite a while at the nursing home. They put the road in, I think, probably 5 or 6 years ago to have it put in. That's what I was told when I got in. They told me about it. I didn't even know about it. But so I know it's a lot of money, but I know it needs to be done too. So.
Any questions for, and then I'm going to ask for a motion and we can debate it, but are there any questions just for clarification so that we have a complete understanding of the report at this time? Councillor Wenzel?
I have one. The purchase of the dry hydrant from the construction company, and they're going to install it also, right? Was there any other company that was approached, or is it just one company that does it?
So what happened, like I mentioned, the original request for pricing was posted to the provincial procurement site where we received no responses. So that's typically our first approach to any RFP, is to post it provincially. It allows for a very competitive process. When we received no submissions to that, it was submitted to, I believe, 12 local contractors. So they're the ones that give us pricing on equipment rentals that we can utilize on some of our larger capital projects. So that same RFP was sent to them, and we only received 1 submission back. Yep.
Further questions?
Thank you for that last bit of information. I think if that had been put in the report, I probably wouldn't have been against the $40,000. If it wasn't a report, I have missed it. So thank you very much.
Any further questions? Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Chetwin. I will look for a motion that the Council Region of Queens Municipality approves the purchase of a dry hydrant from C. Eugene Ingram Construction and Installation at 9565 Highway 8, Caledonia, at a value of $40,000 plus HST. Moved by Councillor Carver, seconded by Councillor Jenkins. Debate, discussion? Councillor Fancy?
It's a hard one to say because of just the cost factors. We know our people could do it, but we just don't have the personnel available at this time. I guess this is what you're trying to say. Is there any set time? Because we're talking only of one hydrant here. We got 3. So where are we going to be doing? Is this going to be another month? We're going to be looking back at the same thing over, and then another 40,000, another 40,000. So there's maybe I don't know if this is the proper time to ask this, but is there any time where you're waiting for pipes or a lull in the process of doing this other work, that some of this work could be done? Or just a question.
For sure, and a valid point. Unfortunately, we're stretched pretty thin with the objectives that we've set out in the budget this past year. So prioritizing, like I said, those things that we're more specialized in to get completed. And some of those things are things that have been pushed off for a number of years. So working towards that. I will mention that at this point, the one hydrant is, if that takes up our budget, then the other 2 hydrants will be pushed as part of budget considerations for next year. So they won't be installed this year.
Struggling with this one a little bit. Certainly, I want to see that dry hydrant go in. Struggling with the price, knowing that we do have we have capability in house. I understand there's a capacity issue. Also, I think from my experience here and comments from our CAO before, is that we as a council do have the opportunity, if we're not okay with this motion, to table it, get clarity, or ask if we wish to direct this particular item to be looked at in-house, what kind of consequences would that have? To Mr. Chetwin's point, what would get pushed out further, things like that. Struggling a little bit right now because those items aren't addressed in this. There's only one motion that suggests to do this externally without all of that information. Yeah, I just wanted to note that to other members of council to see if they are also struggling with that. Garrett, do you know the time frame of when our staff would have completed the dry hydrant in Eastport Medway?
Oh, you're really testing my memory. Typically they're installed during the dry season. That's obviously the easiest time to get them, for our staff to be able to go out in the water and get them positioned in such a way, and to make sure that those intakes are in an adequate location, that when it is dry, they're still underwater. So my best guess would be likely it would have been in like an August, September kind of installation at that time. I want to say 3 years ago now would have been that when that hydrant was installed.
Thanks. I have to agree with the deputy mayor, and I know that we're, as an organization, we're adopting a different approach with respect to the staff reports and having some different expectations, just to foster better, more robust information being available to members of council before we make decision. I think this is a good example where if we had some options with analysis in terms of where we could understand the relative cost and then the relative timeliness and then the impacts to other projects, where we could determine and make a judgment with those options outlined and available to us, I think would be better. But I think but I'm concerned that this is a badly needed piece of infrastructure, and if we delay moving on it now, by the time it comes back to council with a more robust analysis available to us, I don't want to see us in a position where we've had missed the mark on this on this season, and that nursing home is left still without a dry hydrant available to them, and a fire were to occur. So I think it's very legitimate that the things that we're discussing, and we as an organization need to get better at being prepared with a range of options for us to be able to understand, I think, the budgetary implications, and then the timelines, and then the knock-on effect associated with the capacity of our public works and infrastructure team to execute on projects and strike that balance between contracting stuff out and doing stuff in-house. But this is a pretty high stakes one, is my sense. But I'd look to the rest of council. Councillor Jenkins, you want to jump in there?
I know from experience with the fire departments that they do have other ways of getting water out of water sources than the dry hydrants. There's portable pumps that are high volume. Many of the trucks have front intakes so they can pull into a site and pump water. So I don't think it's a fact that they're not going to have water to that site. There's other ways of doing it, and Greenfield Department has had to lay out the other ways of doing it because half of their dry hydrants are very dry. So, and other ones are plugged up with mud. So there's other ways of getting water to a site if an emergency happens. And all the fire departments, I believe, in Queens County have those extra high volume pumps.
It feels like the scenario in which we haven't been able to attract a competitive bid process. We're in the position where we could overpay for the infrastructure because we don't have competitive bids on the table.
I think the problem with this is that if we as a region working with the fire departments came up with a plan of putting in new hydrants or fixing old ones and came up with a group of hydrants to have fixed, then we would get a tender because it would suddenly become a higher dollar value. I think that's what the problem is. It's an inconvenience actually for these guys to load up their trucks and their equipment and go to a site for one hydrant. That's why the cost of $40,000 is there, is because there's a higher cost of doing it, and so if they're going to do it, they want to make money at it. And I think if we had, $150,000 worth of work out there, or $200,000, we do it once every 2 years and fix up a whole bunch of things, it would make it more acceptable to get better quality quotes from the people that do this sort of work in Queens County.
So what should we do with the present motion? What's the will of council? Go ahead, Councillor Fancy.
Yes, further to Councillor Jenkins' points is that these hydrants haven't just been asked for now. They've been on the books for years. This isn't just come up like all of a sudden we're going to miss it to the next meeting, that we're going to be, that we've all of a sudden created a situation. We have other hydrants that are, that we have, I don't know if they're into work, work requests or not, but they aren't really working well. I know the one up in Milton in particular, it's got fittings that leaks air that you can't get hardly any, the water is hard to get out of. So it isn't just our hydrants that aren't there, it's the ones that are there that still need repairs. And I think that was the problem before. We couldn't get anybody to even come repair. And out there in Greenfield, we just had the short time ago. If they wouldn't get that one repaired, that was the only one around to get water with. So the problem's a lot bigger. I think the idea of what Councillor Jenkins is saying is if our people can't do it, that maybe as a combined work, even if it was the repairs of everything else too, could be put into one package. Let's get it, get everything up and running like it should be.
So I think that's a meaningful recommendation for the future, but with the present motion, yeah, go ahead, Councillor Wenzel.
I'll just chime in. So we're talking about $40,000 in the middle of fire season, the driest summer we've seen in years. We're talking about $40,000, right? So if we send him back and tell him that we want another report and we want more information on what we're going to lose and how much, then it's going to be $80,000. Then it's going to be $90,000. So that's what we're quibbling over, folks, $40,000.
Councillor Jenkins.
What I said before is that the fire departments have other means of getting water out of ponds and everything else. In fact, half the time now, to keep water supply, they have to take those pumps to the water source instead of the water source coming to them. So it's not a $40,000 issue. The issue is that we have to get a plan together to fix everything that we have and make it worthwhile so all the fire departments can actually do their job.
Okay, is there if there's a motion to table, I'll hear it, or otherwise I'm going to ask the question unless anybody else has anything that they want to contribute to the debate. Deputy Mayor Charlton?
Thank you. I think that we need to move this forward, but it would also be my expectation, and maybe we need to add on to this motion, or it can be, I guess it would be a separate motion because we're awarding a purchase, but to get some clarity around the dry hydrants that aren't working, that need to be repaired, because I think Councillor Jenkins has a great point about if it were more, if it had more in it, it becomes more attractive rather for people to bid on it. And I think that we have to deal with these dry hydrants, and there's not just one, but there is one that's behind a nursing home that's been identified in a rural area, not far from where fires have been. And to Councillor Wenzel's point, I don't think we should be fighting over $40,000 for something like this, but recognizing that we cannot put all these new hydrants in an absorbent cost. We do have to try to make this more competitive for sustainability moving forward. And also, I think there's on the other side, a conversation to be had about in the next year's budget, are we looking at resourcing this in-house? Are we changing some of our priorities that we have maybe to deal with this beyond a few other things that maybe don't seem as important as they did before, as we have that opportunity to move things around and our priorities as we see fit? So I think there's several things here. Happy to support this particular motion. I think we should then consider a separate motion to direct staff to come back with additional information where we can kind of make another plan long-term for this. Thank you.
That's good. Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor Charlton. I think, hey, stewardship of the public purse is important. Also doing right by our residents and ensuring that our residents are protected for potential loss of property, and those things is also very important. Did you want to get in there, Councillor Fancy?
Yeah, just one more thing. Again, like you said, it's we can't put money on safety. So if we're looking at the one, I could support that. But the other end of it, we said there's three, and we're only going to do one this year. So that we just put two off to another year. So again, if we can put those two in with the others and put that into a package of how we're going to look at this, I can support that.
Okay, Councillor, you okay that I asked the question, or is there anybody who would like to contribute further thoughts to the debate before I ask the question? Okay, all those in, yes, certainly. So Councillor Wenzel has asked, and I think it's a fair ask, that the motion be restated, given that we've had a fairly long debate on the motion. And so the way that it read was that the Council of Region of Queens Municipality approves the purchase of a dry hydrant from C.E. Eugene Ingram Construction and Installation at 9565 Highway 8, Caledonia, at a value of $40,000 plus HST. Sure, go ahead. Councillor Jenkins has a question.
Is there a timeline that this has to be done, or can it be dragged on until next year?
No, so as I mentioned, typically it's in the dry season that they like to see this done through the permitting with the Nova Scotia Environment. So it would likely take place, I would say, in the next month or so.
Is that in the agreement that it takes place in the next month or so?
I believe there was a timeline in the request for pricing. I don't have that on hand, but it's something we can certainly bring to your...
Are you okay if I ask the question? Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Carried. Thanks, Council. Now, would you like to put forward a second motion? And also, was the discussion of dry hydrants, was that something that was going to be, the staff were going to bring forward to the Fire Services Committee? Was that a discussion or no? An item to be brought forward to am I just inventing that at 8:30 in the evening?
We talk about it all the time,
Okay.
and we've had those three up on actually there were four, and then I think one was down Mill Village Way, and then that got taken off, so there was only the three. But the others all that need repairs have just been ongoing. So yes.
I think we've had a really, a pretty fulsome conversation throughout that debate of the motion about council's expectations. I think the recording secretary, I'm assuming, has some pretty good notes on that. My suggestion is that we take it away, get staff to look at it, see if there is a need for further clarification or a substantive motion of council to provide new, different direction to staff with respect to it, so that we can get that right. If that's okay, if we could table it for now, or is it the will of council to get another motion, at this meeting?
I'd like to draft a motion now, because
Sure.
if not, it may get lost.
No, go ahead. Yeah. Okay. Are you? That's my concern, is that I don't have a sense for what the language of the motion would be. I can commit to ensuring that the staff are that we can prepare something, and then it won't fall off. But I'm not prepared to draft a motion right now that would be intelligible. I don't know if anybody else is willing to take a crack at it. Willing to take a crack at a motion. Deputy Mayor Charlton says she's going to try.
I'll try, but be nice. We can move to direct staff to compile a list of the new dry hydrants requested to date and those in need of repair to attract more competitive bids for tender.
So she gets paid the big bucks, folks. Is there? Well, I need a mover. Moved by Councilor Romero. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Councilor Wenzel. Recording secretary, are you okay with it? Okay, great. Debate or discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Charlton and Council. That was a good conversation. Okay, what's up next? The NSFM, right? Okay. And so I'm going to present this on behalf of the municipal clerk, as Angela's not here this evening, but we have the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities Fall Conference is coming up November 4th to 7th. There's going to be a keynote address from the CEO and founder of Peace by Chocolate. Lots of discussions from political leaders, panels on policing oversight, legal supports for council, community engagement, lots of networking opportunities as always. This is the big NSFM conference. The spring conference is not as well attended. This is the one that happens in the fall, annually in Halifax. We had budgeted to cover $1,890 for up to, so as part of the municipal, as part of the 25-26 budget, we had allocated $9,600 for this conference, but that wouldn't cover all 8 members of council attending, as well as the CAO. And I think that the recommendation in the report is that we do fund to permit and allow for all members of council to attend and our new CAO to attend the NSFM conference for this November. So the recommendation would be to fund up to 8 members of council and the CAO to attend at a cost of $1,890 per attendee. Yeah, so this isn't the actual what we've allocated. This is above and beyond what's been allocated in the budget deliberation, but it's seeking approval from the council to provide funding for up to 8 members of council and the CAO to attend this fall's conference. Questions? Questions for Angela?
We're not saying 8 people's gone, we're just
That's right.
budgeting in case.
Budgeting in case.
8 people want.
That's right. Yeah.
We could just identify who wants to go.
Questions?
We should do that.
Any questions on the report? Okay, I'll look for a motion that the Council Region of Queens Municipality approve funding for the CAO and up to 8 members of council who wish to attend the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities Fall Conference scheduled for November 4th to 7th, 2025 in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Is there a mover? Moved by Deputy Mayor Charlton. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Councillor Wenzel. Debate? Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, I will look to a member of council to move that the Council Region of Queens Municipality move to closed session to discuss a contract negotiation and personnel item. Moved by Deputy Mayor Charlton. Is there a second? We're going to move to closed session. Thanks, folks.